Here's a simple way to lighten up your energy and speed up your ascension process in spite of the difficulties that we are currently having on this earth. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. Ascension is all about forward movement and evolution. It's a journey of light. And like any other journey, if you are carrying too much heavy energy with you, it's going to slow you down. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to lighten your energy and your consciousness so that your ascension process can be accelerated and proceed more gracefully. There are a lot of things that slow us down in this journey that we do not need to be carrying. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 main ways that we tend to burden ourselves unnecessarily that slow down our ascension process. The first way is that a lot of what we're carrying is too much information. And shortly, I'm going to show you a simple test that you can use to be able to recognize if the information you're taking in is helping you in your ascension journey or if it's hindering you. The second burden that we tend to carry is worrying about what other people think of us. And the third burden that we tend to carry is the burden of past experiences and past regrets. So I'm going to be talking about all 3 of these burdens, how specifically you can relieve yourself of them. And I'm going to show you how to do that by taking a fresh look at what they really mean. And I think you're going to be fascinated by a number of the things that I have to share with you. So let's start with talking about the burden of having too much information. See, just because information is out there doesn't mean that you're required to process it. It doesn't mean that you are obligated to adopt it and incorporate it into your understanding of life. See, the unfortunate thing about today's world is that we are given massive amounts of information that we either have no evidence for or that is utterly useless for our personal evolution. Now, right now, the world is in a state of chaos and upheaval. Things are totally unpredictable because the world that we once knew is being taken apart. So this naturally causes us to look for some sense of stability, of predictability, and balance. When we don't find those things, our brains will cause us to search endlessly for information that will resolve the feelings of anxiety and insecurity. See, our minds can become like a wide open vessel that is receptive to anything that sounds like it has the potential to bring some relief. So we are much more likely to entertain things that we may not have even considered before. Sometimes it's a positive thing, but other times it's just weighing us down. So I want to give you an analogy of how this can actually work against you. And I think when you hear this, this is going to really crystallize some understanding for you. Now, I'm sure that we have probably all used a vacuum cleaner before. Imagine for a moment that you spread a whole bunch of crumbs on a carpet. And then you might mix in some glitter. You might also throw in a handful of confetti. Maybe you throw in some dirt, you throw in some dust. Let's just say that you sprinkle a wide assortment of all kinds of stuff all over this carpet. And then after you spread all that stuff and sprinkled it all over the carpet, you sprinkle in some very valuable and very tiny jewels. Now, your task is to turn on the vacuum cleaner and only pick up the things on that carpet that are useful, which in this example would be the tiny, valuable jewels. Now, here's the thing. You would not be able to separate those valuable tiny jewels from all of this other stuff if you took this approach. With that vacuum cleaner, you're just going to suck all of it up together. And this is what sometimes happens when it comes to information. Our smartphones and our devices can act like vacuum cleaners that want us to suck up everything that's presented to us, whether it's valuable or not. Now let's go back to my carpet example for a moment. If you really wanted to get those valuable jewels, you would probably get down on your hands and knees and use a lot of discernment about what you were picking up. You would be very clear that you were only interested in the jewels and that you had no interest in the other stuff that was of no value to you. You would be carefully picking up the jewels and putting them in a place where you could hold on to them and use them to your advantage. You would probably discard the rest of the junk on the floor because it would be of no value to you. It's not like you would mix it all together and sit there with all of it and try to figure out how you could use it all. You would not place the same value on all that stuff that you would place on those tiny jewels. And then you would also recognize that even though those jewels are tiny, they can bring you a great deal more than their small size if you use them appropriately. Now, information is exactly like this. We have to be able to discern what is valuable to us and what we should take the time to get involved with. So I'm going to offer you 2 questions that you can ask of any information that is presented to you that will help you to instantly understand its personal value to you in your life. Here are the questions. What can I do with this information? How can I act on this in a way that will improve my life? And the second question is this: does this information empower my evolution as a cosmic creator? Does this add to my understanding of life in a positive, empowering way? Now, let me give you some examples of how you can apply these questions to some common pieces of information. Remember that the purpose of this is to lighten your energy and free you from a lot of unnecessary mental struggle. The goal is to be able to move forward more quickly and with greater ease. So here's the first example. There is a huge amount of information out there about all kinds of things happening either above the earth, inside the earth, underneath the earth, all of these different places that we actually can't really see. Now, whether any of these things are true or not is really not the point. The point is that it is not information that you can personally act upon in order to improve your life and evolve yourself as a being. I mean, it might be incredibly interesting and it might even be true, but does it directly empower you as a cosmic creator and increase directly your own personal understanding of your life? So here's what you want to be thinking about when you encounter information about things that are literally invisible that you cannot see. If you bank on invisible information that you can't see and that you're not personally involved with, if you bank on that kind of information to steer your life, here's the outcome that could create for you personally that you might not want to get too entrenched in. In this case, the only action that you could possibly take is to passively wait and hope that it all comes true. Hope that it all somehow saves the planet. Hope that it yields a visible physical result. So you don't necessarily have to reject that information. It's not about rejection. It's more about discernment and deciding what you're going to take upon yourself as some way by which you personally are going to steer your own life. The problem with anything that might cause you to go into a state of passively waiting for something or passively waiting for something to happen is that creates a certain amount of inertia in your energy. And that inertia will weigh you down in your journey because the underlying message is, well, it's not your task. It's someone else's task who you can't even see. So it can often boil down to an invitation to rely on someone else that is literally invisible to you. So it's perfectly fine if you want to consider this type of information as very interesting, but you just want to be very aware of how it's affecting your own personal evolution on that personal level. You don't necessarily want to attach yourself to that information and use it to steer and guide your own personal life. Now, let me give you another example. And you might say this one's a little obvious, but I'm going to put it out there anyway because we do tend to fall for this because they're so good at it. This would be related to information from any political figure who says, if you elect me or if you trust me, this wonderful thing is what will happen. But have you ever noticed how everything changes once these political figures are in office? And we have seen a lot of profound metamorphosis of a lot of political leaders in our world lately. So whatever political leaders and political figures are promising you, does this empower you as a cosmic being who is trying to evolve? Is it something that you can act upon now in order to improve your life? And does it support your greater understanding of life? Well, the odds are that it probably doesn't. But it can certainly set you up with the unfortunate burden of false hope. And it also positions you to believe that these guys are going to fix everything. But here's the problem with that belief, you all. That belief just puts them more in control. And then, without realizing it, you might be turning over responsibility for the quality of your own life to these people who are known and proven liars. Or if they're not completely liars, they could also just be totally ineffective. Just look at the condition of things. And it's kind of obvious that these are probably the last people on earth that you want to rely on for anything. And here's a third and final example of a certain type of information. That would be all of the doom and gloom put forth by the media. That includes mainstream media, alternative media, and social media. See, the weird thing is that most of what they say nowadays is either what should happen or what might happen. You can ultimately distill the media's stories down to two simple things. It's either some version of we're all gonna die, or you people are horrible and a danger to the planet. And then they just go on and on and on, whining and complaining about everything that they themselves actually created. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that none of what they say contributes to you being able to take action to improve your life. And it certainly doesn't empower you to evolve as a cosmic creator, but it will definitely burden you with a whole ton of worry, anxiety, fear, and anger. And that can lead to real paralysis. So these are just a few common examples of information that can ultimately become a burden and weigh you down in a state of passivity and inertia. Now, if any of these things are important for you to know in order to feel informed, well, that's fine. But pay very close attention to whatever cost it might be extracting from you if you take in too much of it, or if you rely too heavily on it. So if you want to speed up your ascension journey and experience a much more fulfilling evolution, then find information that supports your journey forward by asking a few simple questions. Does this support me in taking action to improve the quality of my life? Or does this lead me on a road of passivity and waiting for something to happen over which I have no control? Does this enhance and support me to be able to evolve as a cosmic creator? Or is it really just serving as a lot of fuel for conversation? And how about this question? Does this lead me to fear and despise my fellow human beings? Because that's a burden that you certainly do not need. So questions can be very powerful when they are appropriately placed. They can actually serve as a wonderful source of guidance that is highly personalized just for you. Now, let me touch on the subject of carrying the burden of past regrets. Our world has changed dramatically. Whatever past there was that led to those regrets, in a way, doesn't fully exist anymore. So here's what you can do to relieve that burden. Think about the subject of reincarnation. Reincarnation implies that you have to die and then get born again in order to have a fresh start. But you could just as easily accomplish the same thing while you're still alive in this lifetime. And that way of looking at things is much closer to how life is looked at in higher levels and dimensions of reality where reincarnation doesn't even exist. So you can take stock of your past and learn now from those regrets. You can keep the wisdom and then move forward from that new place in the same way that you would have to if you died and then came back again. Let me just share with you something very interesting as a bit of an aside about this. See, we have a kind of a mindset because of reincarnation. I think it's really subconscious, where we might have unresolved issues in our lives or past regrets, as I was describing. And on some subconscious, deep level, there's this hidden sense of, well, yeah, but when I die, it will all be over, or something like that. But here's the thing. See, even if you die, you're still going to have to deal with those regrets and whatever happened. That's what the life's review is all about. That's what the whole process is about. You're going to be dealing with it at one point or another. You might, if you're not dealing with it while you're alive, you're going to deal with it later on or in another lifetime or whatever. So if we just take that whole issue of death and reincarnation, just pull that out of the equation, just momentarily, then you could say, well, I might as well come to terms with it now in this lifetime, because you know what? Ultimately, it's not going to be any different if you wait. So you might as well do it now while you're here and while you're alive, because you see, that will tremendously accelerate your evolution. This is just something that's kind of like a little personal self-examination. You'd have to go pretty deep into your consciousness to even figure this out, but I'll just offer it up in case you want to try. You can look at whatever your past regrets are, your unresolved issues, whatever those things are, and just look really deep within yourself and say, is there some hidden idea in my consciousness that I don't really have to necessarily come to terms with it? I don't really have to necessarily complete this, or whatever it is you need to do to ultimately resolve it and be able to move on. I don't really have to, because I kind of know I'm going to die and it's kind of going to go away that way, right? See, just if you want, you don't have to do this, just something you can try if you want to. But if you notice that you have that little funny inkling, you might want to just consider that death is in no way going to change the fact that you're still going to have to deal with it at some point or another. It is so much better if you do it now while you're alive. It is so much better. Honestly, it will move you forward in your evolution so much more rapidly, and you're going to feel really awesome if you do. So I wanted to bring up that subject of the burden of past regrets, because I think sometimes what happens is we are carrying that burden of those regrets, because if you have regrets, it only means that you have not resolved whatever that issue is. You have not really been able to process it yet in a way that completes it for you and allows you to move forward and move on, carrying the wisdom of that experience, the wisdom of which is going to allow you to evolve to a much better place. And I want to share a quote with you that I saw recently that I really love. I'm not sure who said this, but I'll share the quote with you anyway. It's really simple. It said, "It's never too late to become what you might have been." And you know, that is such a beautiful quote, because if you try that little inner exploration that I just talked about reincarnation and death and all of that, you might just have a completely different view of yourself as a being. Now, let me also address the burden of worrying about what other people might think of you. Here's how you can relieve that burden. Realize this. Whatever people might be thinking about you is literally inside of their heads. It's not inside of yours. They're going to think whatever they think, and why would anybody want to stop them anyway? Just like you're going to think whatever you want to think. But here's the thing that will really help you a lot with this kind of a burden. You can just shift your whole way of looking at it and see a person. Let's say there's a person that you're concerned about, you're worried about what they're going to think of you. You can just say, you know, whatever those thoughts are that they might be thinking about me, those thoughts are just swirling around in their head. So just let those thoughts stay in their head. And when those thoughts stay in their head, they're not going to bother you, right? See, where we get in trouble is we want to get inside of their heads and pull some of those thoughts out and put them in our own heads. And then we have to suffer the consequences of having done that. And the truth is, we don't really know what's going on inside of their heads if they don't tell us, right? I mean, just imagine what must be going on inside of every person's mind. All that stuff swirling around. God only knows what's in there, right? Now, ask yourself this question. Would you really want to get inside that person's head and get involved with whatever is swirling around in there? Even if they're thinking about you, they got a whole bunch of other stuff swirling around that too. Would you really want to get involved with that? Probably not. So a simple solution is this. I would recommend that you let their thoughts stay inside of their head and don't take on the additional burden yourself of worrying about what's in their head. So you see how simple that is? If you just recognize it for what it is, that's a huge burden off of you of worrying about what other people think about you. See, you can just be the observer and you can be like, wow, gee, I wonder, a lot of stuff going on in their head. Glad it doesn't have anything to do with me, right? See, because even if they have thoughts about you, it doesn't have to have anything to do with you. It's just stuff in their head. You see how simple that is? So these 3 things that I talked to you about in this video, these 3 burdens that can slow you down, the burden of too much information that you don't really need, the burden of past regrets, and the burden of worrying about what other people might be thinking about you. If you are carrying those burdens, if you're taking all of that on, that's going to get really dense in your energy field. It's going to really weigh you down. It's going to make life feel very heavy. And it can cause depression, right? It can cause inertia. It just slows down the entire process. And we don't really want to be slow in our ascension process. We want to be fast. We want to be smooth. We want to be graceful. And we want it to be accelerated. So I hope that this has helped you understand some very profound ways that you can lighten those burdens, release them, and feel your energy flowing again. Feel how much simpler it can be to evolve and move forward on the right timeline that you want to be on, the more positive, higher vibrational timeline, and flow much more gracefully with your own ascension process. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would find benefit from this information and could use some relief of carrying these heavy burdens. And be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I am here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy, and I so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.